Hey everybody, Chris back with another Proto Tech Tip, and for this week's video I'm going to dive into exclusion zones and talk about why they exist in Protocase Designer. So if you haven't downloaded Protocase Designer yet, here's a few reasons why you should. It is difficult to translate from design to real parts using traditional CAD software, because the software doesn't embody manufacturing constraints. Plus, it's not set up for fast quoting either. Every part of the design process is slower and your project timelines are going to suffer. Now that's where Protocase Designer can be beneficial. Our simple design software is directly integrated with our own custom manufacturing. With 80+ built-in templates, real-time design checks, and instant quoting and ordering, you can streamline your workflow and save time. Exclusion zones are areas within the design template that have been marked to indicate where you cannot add a cutout. Exclusion zones most often are close to the bend line, because that's a key area for avoiding interference. For example, as we've covered in our Proto Tech Tip videos previously about bending, you cannot place a cutout too close to a bend. If you do, the cutout will likely stretch or warp. Exclusion zones enable you to keep your cutouts and fasteners in a safe zone away from a bend. Now, while cutouts are a no-go for putting within an exclusion zone, some graphics or text can be added in. That is, if the exclusion zone exists behind a panel. Take a rack mount, for example, where there is a flange on the base to attach the enclosure to the front panel. In this case, you cannot add a cutout to the front of the panel because your cutout would then get blocked by the flange that sits behind the panel. But by adding a graphic to the front panel in the same way, you're going to be okay. Why? Because it wouldn't cause any interference. It's simply applied to the front panel and has no interaction with the flange behind it. Now, as previously mentioned, one of Protocase Designer's features is that it has built-in live manufacturability checks. So if your design cannot be manufactured as is, you're going to receive a warning message or an error. This feature is especially useful when it comes to exclusion zones. For example, if you've placed a cutout in any part of the exclusion zone, then you're going to get a design warning. One thing to note, despite the warning, you can still submit your design, but it's going to be reviewed by our engineering and design services team. Our team will use their expertise to find the best possible solution for you at this point and reach out to you with your options. Now, there are times when you might want to add an exclusion zone of your own to your design. This can be really helpful for marking areas in your design where a component may protrude. Now, adding your own exclusion zone will also make sure that you steer clear of putting any objects in that area. Now, adding your own exclusion zones can also be useful, especially if there's going to be multiple people working on one design. By including an exclusion zone, other designers will then know that they should not add a cutout in that area that's been marked. So in Protocase Designer, creating your own exclusion zone is really easy. Let's take a look. Once you select the face that you want to add the exclusion zone to, you need to select Exclusion under Type. Then you can select the shape of the zone. The options here include circle, ellipse, rectangle, path, line, and arc. Then you can add an exclusion area to the selected face. For precise measurements, we advise you to make use of the Properties tab. You can modify the newly added exclusion zone's origins, rotation, scales, and much more. Now you're going to see that when I add a cutout to this area, we're going to get a warning. Another thing to keep in mind is that every fastener or hardware that you place on your design, there's going to be an exclusion zone surrounding it. This will prevent you from adding cutouts or other objects within that zone because the cutout will interfere with the fastener that's been placed. And with that, we do come to the end of this week's tutorial. So thanks for watching, and if you still have any questions on what you can add or what you can't add inside exclusion zones in Protocase Designer, please get in touch with the Protocase account manager by sending an email to info@protocase.com, or you can always just fill out the Contact Us form on our website. You can find the link in our description below. But before you go, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel to ensure that you don't miss out on any future tech tips in the future. So until next time, take care.